My bracket. My lovely, lovely bracket. It's busted. It is beyond busted. Arizona, you done just let me down. However, we're gonna just throw that. We're gonna throw that aside for a second because I do want to get into the positives from yesterday outside of the bracket. We'll do my bracket after this, but wow, just it's days like yesterday that are exactly why I love the first 2 days of the tournament. There, there were probably 6 or 7 games yesterday that were within one possession, going down into the last minute of the game, and so much drama, so much excitement, so much upsets. Well, a couple big upsets, a couple somewhat minor ones. I did get one. So I will take a little bit of pride with that one, even if it was probably the one upset everyone picked. The the fact that I at least got one hopefully makes up for that. There were a couple games where I did lose a team, but I didn't have them going much further anyway. And there were even some games that were in that tight game setting where if I had lost that one, I would have only had them going one further round anyway. So, all in all, it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the worst bracket for me as far as number of games I got wrong, but the real buster, again, is Arizona because I had them going all the way to the championship game. Thank goodness I didn't have them winning that game. But I got into the hype of I got into the hype of us against the world, and instead it went thunk. And looks like the 2 big stars for Arizona are just going to go cash some NBA checks and leave Arizona in the dust to settle all their business with their FBI investigation. So let's go into the winners yesterday. Villanova beat up on Radford. Got that one. I'm okay with that one. The other 1 seed that played yesterday was Kansas. That was one of those games that falls into the very fascinating category because a 16 has never beaten a 1. And for most of that game, Penn was hanging there right with them. Kansas pulled away a little bit in the last 5-ish minutes of the game after Penn had been worn down. But there was a lot of time in the first half of that game where Penn was winning, and the thought just sort of creeps into your mind a little bit. Maybe this is the year. Maybe the 16 will finally beat the 1. But in the end, Kansas wins by 16. I go 2 for 2 on that one. Good start there. But got to give a shout out to Penn. Penn came to play. They were ready. Michigan beats up on Montana. I know Montana tends to be a popular upset pick when they're in sometimes, but Michigan pretty much blew them out of the water. Okay. I know that this was like the third game that they started playing yesterday, but it was also the second game, I believe, that had this fantastic drama. I know the first game that tipped off yesterday was Oklahoma and Rhode Island, which, if you're going to have a game to kick off your tournament, that was it. When I get down to there, I will talk about that a little bit, but the Gonzaga UNC Greensboro game. And as I was watching that game, the statement that came out of my mouth was only the first time of many times that I said this yesterday, and it was teams make your free throws. I watched so many games yesterday where the teams did not make their charity shots. The free throws yesterday were just. I would. There were a lot of games where I saw teams shooting between 50 and 60% from the line, and there was even one point where there were some teams shooting below 50% from the free throw line. And if you're going to go far in this tournament, you can't. You just can't be shooting like that. That's something that really needs to. A lot of coaches are going to be working on their little off days if they get a little shoot around on their free throw shooting. But Gonzaga got a little bit of a scare there from UNC Greensboro, and it was because every time Gonzaga was being sent to the free throw line, they just clanked them. And it kept UNC Greensboro in the game. UNC Greensboro made a hot little run near the end of the game. But Gonzaga takes the win, 68-64, and advances on to the second round. That's one of those ones where I go, if I lose this one, I didn't have them going for much further than that. All right, Duke took care of Iona. Bit of a blowout there. The next game on my list of scores. Buffalo just didn't beat Arizona. Buffalo just didn't pull off a little baby upset of Arizona. Buffalo kicked the crap out of Arizona. Buffalo dismantled Arizona. 89-68 was the final. And it was mostly in the second half. Arizona, you really let me down this year. You screwed my bracket. You done screwed up, Arizona. Okay. Maybe not the best reference, but it's early. I admittedly wanted to put this together last night after I was done, but after the travel days that I've had, I went right to sleep. So I'm doing this in the morning after. Tennessee beat up on Wright State. No surprises there. Okay, Texas Tech, Stephen F. Austin. Texas Tech wins by 10. But up until about the 4-to-go timeout in the game, the under 4 timeout in the second half, Stephen F. Austin was winning the game. Texas Tech barely held a lead in that game. But, upset avoided. Phew. Ohio State wins against South Dakota State. That was another popular upset pick because South Dakota State has a very, very talented player named Matt Dahm who was on fire throughout that game. But another upset narrowly avoided. Kentucky-Davidson was another game that went right down to the last minute. Kentucky gets the win, and they will be facing Buffalo. And after watching Buffalo play, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually get the win there. Buffalo plays very, very tough defense. I watched them play Cincinnati this year, and it's probably one of the best teams that Cincinnati... It's definitely the best team I think Cincinnati beat outside of the conference because they did lose to Xavier, and Xavier's probably the best team that they faced all year. But congratulations to Buffalo and Kentucky. Have a good match. Make it a good one. Houston and San Diego State. That was fun. Okay. Okay, good. I have the stat here right here. Houston wins that game by 2. And that last minute was back and forth. 3 for 3, 2 for 2, free throw for free throw, which was impressive because San Diego State is the one team that comes to mind when I said a few minutes ago there were teams shooting under 50% from the free throw line. In about the last 6 minutes of that game, they finally started hitting them. And everybody who played for Houston that was not named Rob Gray was not playing very well at all. Houston scored 67 points in the game. Rob Gray of Houston had 39 of those. I didn't take a look at exactly what the percentage was for that points, but if you have a guy that's scoring at least 60% of your points in a game like that, oh, the rest of your teammates, man, you gotta step up if you want to continue to go far. But congratulations to Houston, got that one right. Loyola of Chicago and Miami. Okay. This is my upset that I did pick, and I was a little worried that it wasn't going to happen. Another fun, just lovely game. Again, it's what I love about these first 2 days. There were so many fantastic games yesterday. It kept the drama going. It kept you on the edge of your seat. It kept a beer in your hands. Yes, it did. But Loyola makes a last-second shot to win the game. There's your buzzer beater. They did put 0.3 seconds back on, but close enough for me. Buzzer beater to win the game. Upset happens. All the drama you wanted in one play, in one game. Love it. All right, so we get that one right. Okay. Here's one of the decisions that I regret. This was the first game that tipped off. Oklahoma and Rhode Island. I thought that Trae Young was going to be the guy to steal the show. And to be fair, for the most part, he was. Rhode Island proved that they were a more experienced and probably better team, at least as far as depth. Sorry, I've got a heater running and it's starting to get a little too hot in here. But Trae Young scored 28 points, had 7 assists. He also had about 6 or 7 key turnovers, maybe a little more than that. But Oklahoma, this was so back and forth because Oklahoma would go up a couple possessions. Rhode Island would come back. Rhode Island would go up. Oklahoma would come back. And in the end, it went to overtime. And Oklahoma blew it in the overtime, essentially. Trae Young for the first half was hot. Coming out into the second half, Trae Young, I don't even know if he got shots off. They just defended him very, very well for the first 12 to 13 minutes of that second half. And then he went off, the way superstar players will. Trae Young ends up with 28 points. I think 18 of them were in that last, maybe 15 of them, because I know he scored a few buckets in the overtime, but a lot of his points came in that last 6, 7, 8 minute stretch of the second half, plus the first minute of overtime. And then right when you needed him to be at his best, he went cold again. Most shooters like that, especially at the college level, just get very streaky, and it hit him at the worst possible time. However, some of those shots he takes are all the way out by half court, and I don't love players taking that shot. It's such a crapshoot. But in the end, Rhode Island gets the win. I take the loss there in my bracket. I probably should have stuck with it because of how I felt about Oklahoma and the fact that they didn't deserve to be there. And to be fair, for the most part, outside of Trae Young, they just proved me right, and I'll eat that one. Another upset I got wrong was in an 8-9 game. In those cases, it's really not an upset. It's still two games that they're two teams that are just about even. It's fine. Seton Hall beats NC State, and Seton Hall was really the team up the entire game. NC State kept trying to come back and just couldn't do it. Alabama versus Virginia Tech. I got that one. I said that Sexton would be the key factor in that game. 25 points in that game. I will take the victory there. And in the last game that I'm going to talk about for yesterday, I got another upset wrong. I thought St. Bonaventure would be a good matchup against Florida, and I feel like they were, but St. Bonaventure just came out and played sloppy. They just turned the ball over. You're not going to win no matter how good or bad your team is. It's really hard to get a win if you're going to turn the ball over as much as they did. I think it was 25 times, and Florida scored most of their points in transition off those turnovers. But I don't think I would have had St. Bonaventure going much further past there. So outside of Arizona, it wasn't an awful bracket day for me. For the most part, I did take a couple losses, but outside of Arizona, I think any loss that I took would have been nullified in the next round anyway because I didn't have those teams going much further past that. But that Arizona Buffalo game affects my national runner-up, so them's the breaks. But today's day 2. It's Cincinnati and Xavier Day. And so there's a lot for me personally to look forward to, being back in Cincinnati for the time being. As you can see, it's not my usual setup. I'm kind of secluded in the room that I'm sleeping in, which doesn't have any real space to sort of make a little studio out of. I'm trying, if I can find another spot in the house, I will set it up. But because there's a lot of moving of some things, given some events from the previous a couple weeks here for my family, there's a lot of clutter. So this might be about as good as it's going to get, unfortunately. But today's plan, more basketball, and hopefully some good food, good drinks, and good times. And hopefully some good basketball. Yesterday was fantastic. I'd like to see if today can match it. So until later tonight, after the last games end tonight, hope your bracket's not as busted as I am, and cheers.